The night she came home from Europe, she walked through the front door with a tan that looked expensive and an energy I had never seen on her before. Not the energy of someone who missed you. The energy of someone who had already mentally redecorated. My name is Marcus. I am a financial analyst. I think in numbers, plan in structures, and communicate in facts. My wife Claire is a brand strategist who thinks in stories, thrives in social rooms, and communicates in emotion. For 6 years, those two styles ran parallel to each other well enough. We were different, sure, but different can be complementary. Until the year it stopped being that. If you are new here, welcome to Story Sparks. Hit subscribe and tap the like button so you don't miss the stories we put out every week. They are real, they are layered, and if you stick around long enough, they will teach you something about people. Now, let's talk about Marcus. The argument that started everything began about 2 months before the trip. Claire said we had become transactional, that the romance had calcified into routine, that she felt like she was living with a project manager instead of a husband. I heard her. I genuinely heard her. I suggested couples therapy. I suggested a week away together, somewhere we hadn't been. I offered to restructure my schedule around Q3 so we had real time together. She took each offer, held it briefly, and then said it was exactly the problem. She didn't want solutions. She wanted me to just feel it, and I couldn't manufacture a feeling on demand. She took that as confirmation, so she proposed what she called a rediscovery trip. 3 weeks solo through Spain and southern France. Not a separation, she clarified. A recalibration. She wanted space to find the version of herself that had gone quiet in our marriage. I told her I would not stand in the way of that. I helped carry her bags to the car the morning she left. I kissed her. I told her to text me when she landed. She stared at me before she got in and said, "You're not even going to try to talk me out of it, are you?" I said, "You're an adult. I'm not going to perform a scene at the airport to prove I love you." She got in the car. I went back inside and made coffee. That moment, she later said, proved everything she already believed about me. It proved I was too cold, too measured, too unwilling to be dramatic on her behalf. And maybe she was right that I wasn't the most expressive person in a marriage. But what I did not know standing in that kitchen that morning, and what she assumed I would never find out, was that the rediscovery trip had already been planned as more than a solo journey. 3 weeks passed. I worked. I cleaned the house. I cooked actual meals. I went to the gym 4 mornings a week. People ask me now if I was lonely. Honestly, I was peaceful in a way that told me something I wasn't ready to name yet. When Claire came back, she was different in a way that I clocked immediately but couldn't fully categorize. There was a new confidence. Not the warm, generous kind. The kind that comes from having made a private decision and not yet having to account for it. She surveyed the living room when she walked in, asked why it smelled like cleaning products. I told her I deep cleaned while she was away. She laughed through her nose and said, "Of course you did." Dinner was surface level. She talked about the trip in a language that was all highlights and no depth. Beautiful food, new friends, long healing conversations with strangers. She kept her phone face down on the counter and checked it the way people check their phones when they want to look casual about something they're actually anxious about. Then she made the comment that shifted the entire night. She said that maybe what she needed was someone who could actually make her feel wanted, not as an insult thrown in an argument, as a thought she was speaking out loud. She looked at me the way someone looks at a problem they've already decided they're done trying to solve. I asked her directly if she was saying she regretted being married. She told me I always turned things into a courtroom. That marriage wasn't a contract and I treated it like one. I slept in the guest room that night, not out of anger, out of the need to think clearly. By the next morning, I already had 3 separate texts from people in our orbit asking if everything was all right at home. My cousin, who follows her on social media, asked if we had some kind of arrangement he didn't know about. A work acquaintance asked vaguely if things were okay. And a woman named Talia, who had always performed friendship better than she practiced it, sent a message saying we should talk. I sat down and opened Claire's Instagram. She had added a new highlight from the trip. Most of it was exactly what you'd expect: scenery, wine glasses, sunsets. Then a clip from a rooftop bar in which someone's hand was resting on her waist in the comfortable way of someone who had done that many times. Then another clip where someone off camera called her babe. She hadn't edited it out. She had posted it. The stomach drop I felt was not panic. It was more like watching a column of figures finally resolve into the number you suspected it would be. When I got home that evening, I waited until she was in the bathroom and then I asked her one question. Who is he? She didn't pretend not to understand. She kept brushing her hair, watching herself in the mirror instead of me, and said, "Who is who?" I told her I saw the videos. The rooftop, the hand, the clip where someone called her babe and she left it in. She turned around slowly and leaned against the counter. Then she laughed, not nervously, dismissively. She said I had gone away for 3 weeks and come back playing detective instead of missing her. I said I wasn't playing detective. I was responding to content she chose to post publicly. The mask slipped. She crossed her arms and said, "Maybe if you weren't so cold and logical, I wouldn't have needed someone who actually made me feel alive." I asked her directly whether she slept with him. She gave me a response about emotional intimacy and connection that was designed to delay the answer. I asked again, just yes or no. She paused for half a second and then said yes. And then she said, "It wasn't a big deal. It just happened. You were emotionally absent anyway." Here is the sentence that mattered. It just happened. A 3-week trip across multiple cities with the same person in photographs taken days apart does not just happen. It is a sequence of daily decisions. Every morning you wake up and choose again. That is not a mistake. That is a series of choices that each had a return point she declined to take. I told her that clearly, without raising my voice. She slow clapped. She said, "See, everything is a lecture with you. No passion, no fight." I said there would not be a fight. I told her if she decided to step outside our marriage, then I was stepping out of it entirely. She told me I was overreacting. She told me I was being dramatic. That word, dramatic, from a woman who had just described a 3-week affair as something that just happened. I walked past her into the bedroom and pulled 2 suitcases from the closet. She followed me, still narrating her version of events. I started folding her clothes with the same care I always fold things for a trip. She laughed at first, thinking it was theater, thinking I was trying to call her bluff. Then she realized it wasn't a bluff. She reminded me the house was in both our names, which is true. It is. Both of us are on the mortgage. I told her I wasn't disputing that. I told her I was simply stating that I was not willing to cohabitate while we sorted through a separation. I was not locking her out permanently. I was telling her she had plenty of friends who had cheerfully watched her wedding trip unfold online and could offer a guest room. I zipped the second suitcase. I held the front door open. She stood there for a full 10 seconds waiting for me to fold. I did not. She grabbed the suitcases with a performance of indignation, told me I would regret this once I calmed down, and walked out. I told her I was calm right now. She left. I closed the door. Habit, not spite. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and emailed a divorce attorney for a consultation. Then I screenshotted everything from her trip highlight before it could be edited or deleted. Every clip, every caption, the rooftop bar footage, the beach clip where the same man appeared across 3 different days in 3 different locations. Patterns matter. By 9 that evening, her friend Talia had already texted claiming I had thrown Claire out without warning and was being emotionally controlling. I responded once. I wrote that Claire had admitted to sleeping with someone during the trip, and I chose not to share a home while pursuing separation. That was all. My cousin called to tell me that screenshots of her posts were circulating in family group chats. Apparently, a caption she had written referring to this man as her European distraction beneath a photo of him kissing her neck had not landed the way she anticipated. She had curated an audience she assumed would see her story as romantic liberation. What they actually saw was a married woman publicly documenting an affair under the branding of a wedding anniversary trip. By midnight, her mother called me, quietly. She asked if it was true. I told her yes, without embellishment and without insulting Claire. I laid out the facts. 3-week trip, admitted affair, my decision to separate. Her mother went silent for a long moment. Then she said Claire had told the family I was distant and unloving. I said, I may be reserved. I am not unfaithful. The next morning, Claire emailed me with a shifted tone. Less confident, more urgent. She said things were getting out of control, which meant that people were not reacting the way she had planned. She had assumed I would stay quiet, absorb the humiliation privately, and quietly work on repairing things while she controlled the narrative externally. What she had not counted on was that I had simply stopped protecting her version of the story. I didn't post anything. I didn't campaign. I just confirmed the truth when asked directly, and declined to fill in the gaps she was counting on me to fill. This is something worth understanding about narrative control in conflict situations, and it applies far beyond marriage. When one person in a relationship is used to the other absorbing, deflecting, or covering for their behavior, the sudden removal of that cushion feels like aggression even when it is simply neutrality. Claire experienced my composure as a weapon because she needed me to be reactive in order to reframe herself as the reasonable one. When I stayed still, her story had no foil, and without a foil, it had no structure. Her European distraction, it turned out, had posted a photo of them together from Barcelona. Someone sent him screenshots of our actual wedding. The white dress, the first dance, the life we had built publicly over 6 years. He had not known she was married. He deleted the photo within hours. Then he unfollowed her. Then he posted something about honesty and transparency in relationships that anyone following both of them could interpret accurately. Her marketing role depended on her personal brand. Her personal brand was now cracked in high resolution. By the end of the week, she had been quietly removed from a campaign she was leading at her company. No announcement, just reassignment. Mutual friends stopped engaging with her posts. Some unfollowed. Not because of anything I did or said, but because visible betrayal makes people uncomfortable, and she had made hers extremely visible. She sent me a calculated email suggesting we present the divorce as a mutual break to settle the public situation. She implied that if I pursued the separation aggressively, she would have to speak publicly about my emotional shortcomings. I forwarded that email directly to my attorney without responding. He called it a sign of someone realizing consequences are real. The official filing happened within a month of her return. Colorado divides assets. It does not adjudicate blame. The townhouse sold. The accounts were documented and separated. My attorney told me that clean timelines make clean cases. I had a very clean timeline. What I want to say directly here, because this is the part that actually carries weight beyond one marriage ending, is this. The most destabilizing thing I did throughout this entire situation was simply refuse to perform the role she had written for me. She needed me to be the cold, unfeeling antagonist so that her choices could exist inside a story of emotional survival. When I didn't play that part, when I stayed measured and factual and calm, her story lost its architecture, and she was left standing in the wreckage of a narrative that no longer had a villain to point at. There is a concept in psychology called the fundamental attribution error. It is the human tendency to attribute other people's behavior to their character and your own behavior to your circumstances. Claire attributed my steadiness to coldness and her affair to the circumstances of our marriage. Those attributions led her feel like a protagonist in a story of liberation, rather than a person who made a series of choices that caused real damage. The attribution error is not unique to her. Most people do this. Understanding it doesn't excuse the choices, but it explains the confidence, the initial smug energy when she walked through the door, the dismissive laughter. She had written a story in which she was discovering herself. The story didn't survive contact with other people's actual perceptions of it. About 3 weeks after the sale of the townhouse closed, she sent me one final email. She said she never expected things to spiral. She said she wanted to provoke a reaction from me before the trip, that she had hoped a dramatic enough departure would finally make me show up emotionally the way she needed. When I didn't react the way she wanted at the airport, she leaned into the attention she found elsewhere. She said the affair felt validating at the time. I read it once. I archived it, because here is the thing she was right about. I am logical, and logic, as a tool for navigating the end of something important, is underrated. Logic said that betrayal is not a navigation error. It is a destination someone chooses. Logic said that staying would require me to become smaller so she could feel larger. Logic said that a person who needs to break something to see if you'll fix, it is not a person who is actually trying to build with you. Logic said that the calmer I stayed, the more clearly everything around me resolved. She came home expecting wreckage. She found math, and the math was simple. This is who she chose to be when she thought I wasn't watching. That information is complete. It does not require a second opinion. I live in a smaller place now, closer to work. Fewer rooms, fewer objects with shared histories attached to them. People still occasionally ask what happened. I give them the same answer every time. She chose to step outside the marriage publicly and repeatedly. I chose not to continue it after that. No campaign, no bitterness, no performance. She wanted grand emotion from me. What she got was clarity. And in the end, I think that cost her far more than tears ever would have. If this story landed with you, tell me what part hit differently in the comments. I genuinely read them. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe to Story Sparks. We're here every week with something real. Hit the like button if this earned it, and we'll see you in the next one.